In this video I'm going to show you how to check the rear brake pads on a 2008 Harley Davidson Road Glide. The first thing you need to do is remove the right saddlebag, and once you do that it will give you access to the rear brake caliper, which is right here. The minimum thickness of the friction material on the brake pads is 16 thousandths of an inch for this motorcycle. The brake pads do have wear indicator lines, but they're almost impossible to see with the brake pads mounted on the motorcycle, so I'm going to remove this caliper, remove the brake pads, and measure the friction material with the pads off the bike. The way that you get this brake caliper off is you remove these two big bolts here. They're 5/16 of an inch, and the way you get the brake pads out of the caliper is to remove this brake pad pin, which is 5 millimeters. I don't know why this is metric and these are standard, but that's the way they've done it. The easiest way to do this is to loosen up this brake pad pin before you remove the caliper. Before you remove the brake pad pin, there's a retaining clip right here that you need to remove before you loosen it up. Just grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers and pull it out. That's what it looks like. With that clip removed, you can loosen up this brake pad pin. Just makes it easier. It's easier to do with the caliper still attached to the bike. Now we can remove the brake caliper bolts. Then you're ready to lift the caliper off the bike. Never let the caliper hang from the brake hose because you can damage the hose. So pre-plan where you're going to rest this before you pull it off. With the brake caliper off the bike, I can now completely remove this brake pad pin. You can see here how this brake pad pin extends through this caliper and goes through the brake pad. Here's one brake pad here, and here's the other one. And it holds it in place. So now we can remove this pin. And remove it all the way. Then I'm ready to turn this caliper over and work these pads out. And there's one, and there's the other one. You want to be real careful when you're handling these brake pads. You don't want to get grease on the friction material. These are my brake pads. This part of the brake pad is the friction material. This metal part, the metal backing plate, is a metal backing plate that the friction material is attached to. The distance from the top of this metal backing plate to the top of this friction material is your brake pad thickness. And like I said earlier, the minimum thickness for this brake pad is 16 thousandths of an inch. These lines here are wear indicator lines. As long as you can see these wear indicator lines, then you're above that 16 thousandths of an inch. If you can't see them anymore, then it's time to replace the pads. Another way you can measure the thickness of this friction material is use a pair of calipers. You want to extend this piece of the caliper and rest this part against the metal backing plate, and then rest this part against the friction material like this. And then press it down until that part rests against the friction material, and then take a measurement, and it's 73 thousandths of an inch. And then we'll do the other one. And the thickness of this one is 76 thousandths of an inch, so I'm well within, or well away from that 16 thousandths of an inch minimum. Along with measuring the thickness of the friction material, you can just inspect the integrity of the brake pad. The friction material should be relatively smooth. There shouldn't be any deep gouges except for these wear indicator lines. The surface of this friction material should be relatively parallel to the metal backing plate, which shows that the pad is wearing evenly. Before you reinstall the pads, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there's a brake pad spring in here. Make sure that that's in place before you insert the pads. Now I'm ready to reinstall the brake pad. Make sure it's resting against these caliper pistons, so there's enough space in between the pads for the brake disc. That way you don't have any problems reinstalling the caliper. Kind of work it in here. And like I said earlier, when you do this, make sure you don't have any oil or grease on your hands, because you don't want to get that on the friction material of the brake pad. With the brake pads in place, I can reinstall the brake pad pin and tighten that down. I'm not going to tighten it all the way because it's easier to tighten this when the caliper is attached to the bike. Now I can reinstall the caliper on the bike. Make sure that the brake disc fits in between the brake pads, and reinstall the caliper bolts. The caliper bolts should be tightened to between 43 and 48 foot-pounds. I'm going to tighten them to 45 foot-pounds. And now I'm ready to tighten the brake pad pin. The brake pad pin should be tightened between 75 and 102 inch-pounds. I'm going to tighten it to 80 inch-pounds. And now I'm ready to reinstall this retaining clip. The retaining clip just fits around the brake pad pin. With the brake caliper reinstalled on the bike, I'm ready to reinstall the right saddlebag and take the bike out and for a test drive. Make sure that the brake system's working properly. Always take it easy until you're confident that everything's working correctly. One thing I forgot to mention earlier in the video, it's always a good idea to wash off your brakes before you work on them, because you don't want to breathe any brake dust in. They used to manufacture brake pads using asbestos, so the older the bike is, the more likely that the brake pads do have asbestos, and you don't want to breathe that stuff into your lungs. Hope you found this video helpful, and thank you for watching.